Breaking news, second Sphinx found under Giza Plateau. Is that just hyperbolic language on the internet, Filippo, or have you identified what may be a second Sphinx?
The working is in progress, and we can't say, okay.
The Great Sphinx of Giza has been staring at the eastern horizon for at least 4,500 years. It is the oldest and largest monumental sculpture on Earth, 240 feet long, 66 feet high, carved from a single ridge of natural limestone bedrock on the Giza Plateau, with the body of a lion and the face of a pharaoh. It weighs approximately 200,000 tons. It has survived the rise and fall of every Egyptian dynasty, the conquest by Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Turks, the French, and the British. It has been buried in sand up to its shoulders more than once. Its nose was chiseled off, by whom is still debated. Its beard fell off and is now in the British Museum. Its original painted surface, red body, blue and gold headdress, has been erased by wind and time. And beneath it, according to multiple independent surveys spanning 5 decades, there are chambers that no living person has ever entered. In 1977, a team funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation used resistivity sensors and found anomalies behind the rear paws and in front of the front paws. In 1991, geophysicist Thomas Dobecki used seismic refraction to detect a rectangular chamber approximately 15 feet below the front paws, a void with clear boundaries, roughly 30 feet long and 12 feet wide. In 2025, Italian researcher Filippo Biondi used synthetic aperture radar and reported a structured cavity directly beneath the Sphinx's front paws with clear, defined edges. Not a natural crack, but a man-made space. 3 independent teams, 3 different technologies, 3 different decades, all pointing to the same location, directly beneath the front paws of the Sphinx. Something is down there, something with walls, something with a floor and a ceiling, something that someone carved out of the bedrock at some point in the last 4,500 years, or possibly much longer, and then sealed. Nobody has opened it. Nobody has looked inside. Nobody has sent a camera, a drill, a robot, or an endoscope into the space beneath the Sphinx. The Egyptian government has blocked every request. The most famous sculpture on Earth is sitting on top of a sealed room, and the authorities responsible for the site will not allow anyone to investigate what is inside. The AI analysis of all available scan data, resistivity, seismic, GPR, SAR, and ERT surveys, compiled across 48 years, has produced the most comprehensive subsurface map of the Sphinx ever created. And it confirms what every survey has suggested. The anomalies are real, they are structured, and they are not natural geological features. The question is not whether there are chambers beneath the Sphinx. The evidence for that is overwhelming. The question is why no one is allowed to look inside them. To understand why the chambers matter, you need to understand what the Sphinx is, and more importantly, what we do not know about it. The Sphinx is conventionally dated to the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BC, the same pharaoh who built the second largest pyramid at Giza. The dating is based on 3 pieces of circumstantial evidence. The Sphinx sits adjacent to Khafre's pyramid complex. The face may resemble Khafre, though this is debated. Some researchers argue the proportions are inconsistent with Khafre's known statues, and a granite stele called the Dream Stele, erected between the Sphinx's front paws by Pharaoh Thutmose IV around 1400 BC, contains a partially damaged cartouche that may, or may not, contain the syllable Kaf. That is it. 3 pieces of circumstantial evidence. No inscription on the Sphinx itself identifies its builder. No contemporary document from the Old Kingdom mentions it. No construction record describes how or when it was carved. The most famous sculpture in human history has no birth certificate. In 1991, Boston University geologist Robert Schoch examined the erosion patterns on the Sphinx's body and the walls of the enclosure from which it was carved. What he found ignited a controversy that has not died down in 35 years. The erosion on the Sphinx is not wind erosion. The horizontal layer cake pattern you see on every other limestone structure in Egypt. It is water erosion. Deep, vertical, rounded channels carved by rainfall running down the surface over long periods. the same pattern you see on limestone cliffs in regions with heavy precipitation. The problem is that Egypt has not had significant rainfall since approximately 5000 BC, and possibly much earlier. The Sahara Desert began forming around 7000 to 5000 BC as the African monsoon shifted southward. Before that, the region was green, a savanna with lakes, rivers, and seasonal rains. If the water erosion on the Sphinx was caused by rainfall, and if the last significant rainfall on the Giza plateau occurred before 5000 BC, then the Sphinx was carved before 5000 BC, at least 2500 years earlier than the conventional date of 2500 BC, and possibly as early as 7000 to 10,000 BC. Schoch's water erosion hypothesis has been debated intensely. Mainstream Egyptologists reject it. They argue that the erosion could have been caused by capillary action, moisture rising from the water table, by the Nile floods that periodically reach the plateau, or by salt crystallization within the limestone. But Schoch's geological evidence is compelling enough that it has never been fully refuted. The erosion channels are vertical, they are deep, they are consistent with prolonged rainfall, and the Sahara has been dry for at least 7,000 years. If the Sphinx is significantly older than 2500 BC, if it dates to 7000 BC or earlier, it was carved by a civilization that predates the pharaohs by millennia. A civilization we have no other evidence for. A civilization that could carve a 240-foot monument from living bedrock, but left no written records, no cities, no other monuments that we have identified. Or did they? Because there is one other structure on the Giza plateau that has always puzzled archaeologists: the Valley Temple, connected to the Sphinx by a causeway. The Valley Temple is built from enormous limestone blocks, some weighing over 200 tons, fitted together without mortar, in a style that is completely different from every other Old Kingdom Egyptian building. The blocks are so massive and so precisely fitted that some engineers have compared the construction to the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, or the Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek in Lebanon, structures that are themselves considered anomalous in their respective archaeological contexts. If the Valley Temple was built at the same time as the Sphinx, and by the same builders, it represents a construction capability that the Old Kingdom Egyptians may have inherited rather than invented. Schoch has proposed that the original Sphinx was carved between 7000 and 5000 BC by a pre-pharaonic civilization, and that it was later adopted, modified, and recarved by the Old Kingdom Egyptians, who added the pharaonic headdress, recut the face, which is disproportionately small compared to the body, suggesting it was recarved from a larger original head, and incorporated the monument into their own religious and funerary complex. If this is true, the Sphinx as we see it today is a palimpsest, an older monument overwritten by a younger civilization. And if the original builders carved chambers beneath the Sphinx, chambers to store records, rituals, or knowledge, those chambers would predate the pharaohs. They would contain evidence of a civilization that history does not acknowledge, and that evidence would rewrite not just Egyptian history, but the entire timeline of human civilization. Unless those records are beneath the Sphinx, and the scans suggest they might be. The subsurface investigation of the Sphinx has been one of the most politically charged stories in modern archaeology. Multiple teams have scanned beneath the monument using increasingly sophisticated technology. Every team has found anomalies, and every team has been prevented from investigating further. The first modern survey was conducted in 1977 by the Stanford Research Institute, SRI, funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation. The team used resistivity measurements, passing electrical current between metal rods driven into the rock and measuring how the current flowed, along with magnetometry and thermal infrared imaging. Their official report stated, "Several anomalies were observed as a result of our resistivity survey at the Sphinx. Behind the rear paws we ran 2 traverses. Both traverses indicate an anomaly that could possibly be due to a tunnel aligned northwest to southeast." The report also noted 2 additional anomalies deep in the bedrock in front of the paws of the Sphinx, anomalies behind the rear paws, anomalies in front of the front paws, multiple readings, multiple instruments, a possible tunnel, documented in a government-funded report. In 1977, nothing was done. In 1991, seismologist Thomas Dobecki conducted a seismic refraction survey around the Sphinx as part of Robert Schoch's geological study. Seismic refraction works by sending sound waves into the ground and measuring how they bounce back from underground interfaces, the boundaries between rock and empty space. Dobecki found a clear rectangular anomaly beneath the left front paw of the Sphinx, a void approximately 30 feet long by 12 feet wide, located roughly 15 feet below the surface. The anomaly had sharp, defined edges, not the gradual transitions you see with natural geological features, but the abrupt boundaries of a carved chamber. Dobecki described it as a very definite geometrical pattern that suggests a man-made chamber. The Egyptian Antiquities Authority, then led by Zahi Hawass, denied the team permission to investigate further. The project was shut down. Dobecki's data was published, but never followed up. The rectangular void beneath the Sphinx's left paw remains unexplored. In 1996, a team from Florida State University used ground-penetrating radar to scan the area between the Sphinx's paws. They reported detecting a chamber approximately 25 feet below the surface. The chamber appeared to be accessible through a shaft that descended from the area near the Dream Stele, the granite tablet erected by Thutmose IV between the front paws. The shaft, if it exists, would have been sealed with stone blocks at some point after the Dream Stele was installed. Permission to investigate was denied. In 2017 and 2018, Japanese researchers from Waseda University used electromagnetic sounding equipment around the Sphinx and the surrounding plateau. Their findings have been partially published and suggest additional subsurface anomalies consistent with voids or passages. In 2022, Italian researcher Filippo Biondi and Scottish researcher Corrado Malanga published a paper in the journal Remote Sensing using synthetic aperture radar tomography, a satellite-based technology that can map subsurface structures by analyzing how radar signals penetrate and reflect from underground features. Applied to the Giza plateau, the SAR data revealed anomalies beneath the Sphinx and the surrounding area. In 2025, Biondi published updated SAR analysis, claiming to have identified a structured cavity directly beneath the Sphinx's front paws, a void with clear geometric boundaries, consistent with a man-made chamber. The findings were met with both excitement from independent researchers and caution from mainstream Egyptologists, who noted that SAR technology has limitations in the shallow-depth, limestone bedrock environment of Giza, and that the findings require ground truth verification. The AI compiled every scan, the 1977 SRI resistivity data, Dobecki's 1991 seismic data, the 1996 GPR data, the Japanese electromagnetic data, and Biondi's SAR data, and integrated them into a single three-dimensional subsurface model. The model shows consistent anomalies in 3 locations: beneath the front paws, behind the rear paws, and along a northwest to southeast axis that may connect the two. The anomalies appear in multiple independent datasets, collected by different teams using different technologies across nearly 5 decades. The probability that all of these readings are artifacts or noise, that every team, with every instrument over 48 years, detected the same false positive in the same location, is vanishingly small. Something is under the Sphinx, multiple somethings, connected by what may be tunnels or passages, carved into bedrock, sealed, and never opened in modern history. The idea that something is hidden beneath the Sphinx is not new. It is, in fact, one of the oldest and most persistent legends in the Western esoteric tradition. In the 1930s and 1940s, American mystic Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, delivered a series of trance readings in which he described a hall of records hidden beneath the Sphinx. According to Cayce, the Hall of Records was a repository of knowledge from a lost civilization, a library containing the history, science, and spiritual wisdom of an advanced prehistorical culture that had been destroyed by a cataclysm. Cayce identified this civilization as Atlantis and stated that the records had been sealed beneath the Sphinx around 10,500 BC to be discovered when humanity was ready. Cayce's readings have no scientific credibility. He was not an archaeologist. He was not a geologist. He was a psychic who claimed to access information while in a trance state. His predictions about the Hall of Records have been treated by mainstream academia with the same respect they give to horoscopes. But there is an uncomfortable wrinkle. Casey said the Hall of Records was beneath the right paw of the Sphinx. The SRI team in 1977 found anomalies in front of the paws. Dobecki in 1991 found a rectangular void beneath the left paw. Biondi, in 2025, found a cavity beneath the front paws. Every scientific scan has detected anomalies in exactly the area Casey described. The AI does not evaluate psychic claims, it evaluates geophysical data, and the data shows voids beneath the Sphinx's paws that have been independently detected by 5 different teams over 48 years. Then, in May 2026, a declassified CIA document from 1952 added another layer to the story. The document, part of a routine intelligence file from the early Cold War era, contains a reference to a temple under Sphinx in the context of Egyptian archaeological sites. The reference is brief, unexplained, and may refer to a surface temple that was later covered by sand rather than an underground chamber. But its existence in a classified CIA file, a file that was sealed for over 70 years, has fueled intense public interest and calls for further investigation. The AI cannot evaluate the CIA document's significance. It notes the reference and flags it as an unverified data point. But, combined with 48 years of geophysical anomalies, the convergence of independent evidence, scientific, prophetic, and now governmental, creates a pattern that is increasingly difficult to dismiss as coincidence. Between the front paws of the Sphinx stands a granite slab, roughly 12 feet tall, erected by Pharaoh Thutmose IV around 1400 BC. The Dream Stele tells a story. The young prince Thutmose was hunting near the Giza plateau when he fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx, which was buried in sand up to its shoulders. In a dream, the Sphinx, identified as the god Horemakhet, spoke to him and promised that if Thutmose cleared the sand from its body, he would become pharaoh. Thutmose did as the dream commanded. He cleared the sand, he became pharaoh, and he erected the stele to commemorate the event. The Dream Stele is significant for several reasons. First, it proves that the Sphinx was already ancient when Thutmose encountered it in 1400 BC, over 1,000 years after its conventional construction date of 2500 BC. The monument was so old by Thutmose's time that it had been buried in sand up to its neck. That is a lot of sand. That is a lot of time. The rate of sand accumulation on the Giza plateau suggests that the burial may have occurred over centuries or millennia of neglect, consistent with the Sphinx being very old, possibly much older than the pyramids nearby. Second, the stele's original text, now partially damaged, contains a line that has been the subject of intense debate. The line appears to reference a hidden structure associated with the Sphinx. Some translators read it as a reference to a place of the first time, an Egyptian concept referring to the primordial era when the gods ruled Egypt. If the Dream Stele refers to a hidden structure associated with the first time, it would be the oldest textual reference to something concealed beneath or within the Sphinx. Third, the Dream Stele sits directly above one of the most prominent subsurface anomalies detected by the 1996 GPR survey. The shaft that the Florida State team detected, the one that appears to descend from the area near the stele into a chamber below, would pass directly through the ground on which the stele was erected. If Thutmose IV placed his stele over the entrance to a sealed chamber, the question becomes, did he know what was below? Did the dream tell him? Or did he seal the entrance with a 12-foot granite slab and a story about a talking sphinx to ensure that no one would dig beneath it? Before we discuss the politics, it is worth noting that the Sphinx already has known tunnels and shafts, features that have been documented, entered, and partially explored. There is a shaft in the top of the Sphinx's head, a vertical hole roughly 3 feet in diameter that descends into the body. Its purpose is unknown. Some researchers believe it held a crown or a statue. Others believe it was a ritual shaft connected to ceremonies performed on top of the monument. There is a tunnel behind the Sphinx's haunches, a narrow passage that extends into the bedrock behind the monument. It was partially explored in the 19th century, but has never been fully mapped. There is a shaft beneath the Sphinx's rear, discovered during restoration work, that descends vertically into the bedrock. Its bottom has never been reached. And there are the well shafts on the Giza plateau, vertical shafts cut into the limestone bedrock surrounding the pyramids and the Sphinx. The most famous is the Osiris shaft, located along the causeway between the Sphinx and the second pyramid. The shaft descends through 3 levels to a depth of approximately 100 feet, ending in a subterranean chamber containing a large granite sarcophagus surrounded by water. The shaft was partially explored by Hawass in 1999 and filmed for a Fox television special, but the deepest levels were not fully investigated, and subsequent access has been restricted. The point is that the Giza Plateau is already known to contain underground structures, shafts, passages, and chambers carved into the bedrock. The question is not whether the ancient Egyptians, or their predecessors, dug underground at Giza. They clearly did. The question is what else they dug that we have not yet found. And the scans say the answer is quite a lot. The political history of Sphinx exploration is as mysterious as the chambers themselves. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's most powerful and most controversial Egyptologist, has been the gatekeeper of the Giza Plateau for over 3 decades. As Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, and later as Minister of Antiquities, Hawass controlled access to every archaeological site in Egypt. He personally approved or denied every research permit, every excavation request, and every scanning proposal. Hawass has consistently denied permission to investigate the subsurface anomalies beneath the Sphinx. His stated reasons are practical. The Sphinx is fragile, the bedrock is cracked, and any invasive investigation risks damaging the monument. These concerns are legitimate. The Sphinx has been losing stone for decades. Chunks of limestone have fallen from its body, and restoration efforts have struggled to keep pace with deterioration. Drilling or excavating beneath the paws could destabilize the structure. But Hawass has also blocked non-invasive investigations, methods that would not touch the Sphinx at all. Muon tomography, the technology that successfully detected hidden chambers in the Great Pyramid, could map the interior of the Sphinx and the bedrock beneath it without drilling a single hole. The detectors would be placed on the surface or in existing tunnels, not inside the monument. The technique has been proposed multiple times. Permission has been denied each time. Critics, including Robert Schach, who was physically barred from the site during one attempted investigation, have accused Hawass of protecting not the Sphinx, but the conventional narrative. If the chambers exist and contain evidence that the Sphinx predates the pharaohs, the entire chronology of Egyptian civilization would need to be rewritten. The pyramids would no longer be the oldest monumental structures in Egypt. The pharaohs would not be the first great builders, and Egypt's national identity, which is deeply tied to the pharaonic narrative, would face a challenge that no amount of academic debate could resolve. The AI cannot evaluate political motives. It can only note that the geophysical evidence for subsurface chambers has been accumulating for 48 years, that multiple independent teams have confirmed the anomalies using different technologies, and that no investigation of any kind has been permitted. The Great Sphinx has been staring at the eastern horizon for at least 4,500 years. Every morning, the first rays of the sun hit its face. Every evening, the shadow of the Great Pyramid falls across its body. It has been buried in sand and dug out. It has been painted and stripped. It has been worshipped as a god and dismissed as a tourist attraction. It has survived everything that time, nature, and human stupidity have thrown at it for 45 centuries. And beneath its paws, in the bedrock from which it was carved, there are voids, rectangular voids, geometric voids, voids with defined edges and flat surfaces that natural geology does not produce. Detected in 1977, confirmed in 1991, confirmed again in 1996, confirmed again in 2025, by resistivity, by seismic refraction, by ground-penetrating radar, and by synthetic aperture radar from orbit. 5 teams, 5 technologies, 5 decades. Same result, same location, same conclusion. Something is under the Sphinx that was carved by human hands. Nobody has opened it. Nobody has looked inside. nobody has been allowed to. The Dream Stele stands between the paws, telling a story about a prince who fell asleep and heard the Sphinx speak. A CIA document from 1952 references a temple under Sphinx in a file that was classified for 70 years. An American psychic in the 1930s described a hidden chamber in the exact location where 5 scientific surveys have detected anomalies. And Egypt's most powerful archaeologist has spent 3 decades making sure nobody checks. The AI does not speculate about what is inside the chambers. It does not predict Atlantean libraries or pharaonic treasures or the lost wisdom of a prehistorical civilization. It reports geophysical data. It compiles independent scan results. It builds 3-dimensional models of subsurface density anomalies. And it says, with the cold precision of a machine that has no agenda and no career to protect, the voids are real. They are structured. They are man-made, and they have never been opened. The AI model shows at least 3 distinct anomaly zones. Zone 1, beneath the front paws, where Dobecki found the rectangular void in 1991, and Biondi confirmed a structured cavity in 2025. Zone 2, behind the rear haunches, where the SRI team detected a possible tunnel in 1977. Zone 3, along a northwest to southeast axis, connecting zones 1 and 2, a linear feature that is consistent with a passage or corridor linking the front and rear anomalies. If the 3 zones are connected, if a passage runs from beneath the front paws, under the body of the Sphinx, to the area behind the rear haunches, then the Sphinx is not just sitting on top of a chamber, it is sitting on top of a system, an underground complex carved into the same bedrock from which the Sphinx itself was carved, by the same people, with the same tools, for a purpose that no one living can identify, because no one living has ever been inside. The technology to investigate without touching the monument exists right now. Muon tomography, the same technology that found the big void in the Great Pyramid, could map every void beneath the Sphinx in a matter of months. The detectors would sit on the surface. No drilling, no excavation, no damage to the monument. Just cosmic ray particles passing through stone and telling us where the empty spaces are. The proposal has been made. The technology is ready. The detectors are available. The only thing missing is permission. Whatever is down there has been waiting for 4,500 years, or 7,000 years, or 10,000 years, sealed in bedrock, in darkness, beneath the oldest monumental sculpture on Earth. And the only thing standing between that sealed chamber and a camera is a permission slip that no one will sign. Subscribe. Because the AI keeps finding the same pattern: sealed chambers, blocked investigations, and answers that are always just beneath the surface, waiting for someone who is allowed to look. The next file is on your screen.